and welcome to another segment of Envision. This is our opportunity to hear from Dr. Brian Maher on things that are going on in the district and information that our community may very well benefit from knowing. So you're telling me recently you met with a group of students. Tell me about the Student Advisory Committee and sort of the purpose for doing that.
Right. Well, you know, one of the things we do is we try to get a lot of information back from staff, from parents, from community to help us in our decision-making abilities. And oftentimes one of the things that gets left out is that voice of the student. And so one thing that was in place when I came to Sioux Falls was a student advisory group. We've kept that going and had an opportunity recently to meet with a group of students representing every high school in the district and put some topics in front of them and then opening it up to them to have me talk about topics. And what I found was they were incredibly engaged in that process. And if I threw them topics that were really fairly easy or kind of surface level, they were engaged and gave me good responses. But what I was impressed with was when I asked maybe some tougher questions, some policy level decisions. And number one, they didn't shy away from it. They had their opinion. And number two, their opinion was really well reasoned and really well thought out and information that I know I can use. So it's a great group and something we'll definitely keep rolling with.
Sure, sort of gives you a snapshot into the critical thinking abilities of the students and sort of on their feet as well, because they didn't have time to prepare for the topics maybe that you were discussing today.
Yeah, we didn't put the agenda out in advance, so they didn't know. They came with a blank slate. So I got their unprepared thoughts. If anybody would have dropped in and listened to the commentary that went on, the feedback I got from the students, I think they would have thought two things. Number one, they would have thought we're in good shape long term with students like these as our future. And number two, they would have thought, wow, why don't we include kids more and that voice more, because it impacts them so tremendously.
Just briefly, what were some of the topics you talked about?
Well, we talked about, number one, we talked about the change in start of the school. You know, these students are juniors and seniors, and so they have gone through almost a career's worth of middle of August start times to this year coming in after Labor Day. So it was, we had a conversation on that. And they gave comments all the way from socially what it meant to them, to activities, how the new calendar didn't match up with their activities calendar, and their concern, they're wondering how taking semester tests after the winter break will be received by the student population, and how the AP testing schedule will go. So they had some strong opinions at this point. We're going to revisit that at the end of the year after they've had an opportunity to experience a whole year. And hopefully the information they give us will drive calendars in the future, once we're through this 3-year cycle.
Sure, so they're living it, breathing it, and again, sometimes that discussion, is made by adults when the direct impact is on students and not just the calendar, but on many different issues as well.
We have another issue that we're wrestling with right now, and it's a policy that we have on people being on grounds late at night, and we're looking at that policy, seeing if we need to maybe change it a little bit to restrict access to school grounds, particularly parking lots, once the sun goes down, to make sure that it's safe for our kids if they come back from an activity or if they're being tutored, and just talk to them about that particular policy. And they gave great insight as to, number one, who's hanging around, and what they're up to, and whether or not we should be concerned about that. So they're helping to shape and determine policy for the district. So it's not just feel-good type of stuff. I mean, they're really into some important information for us.
And these students selected are selected by the school, typically those who are maybe interested in leadership sort of capabilities and such.
Some of the students can come directly from the high school student councils. Some are selected by the administrators at the buildings. So there's a little bit of there's not one way
Sure.
to be appointed to this committee, but they are appointed at the building level. We just have slots. We have 4 slots for each of the comprehensive high schools, Roosevelt, Lincoln, and Washington. And then we have 2 slots also for New Technology High and Joe Foss. So we've got kids from every building that come and be a part of this.
Great. Well, we hope you've learned something about how information is collected from our students and considered as we move forward with changes or potential changes in the future. Thanks for joining us on Envision.